So why do employers do background checks? I promise it's not to be Purian. They're not being nosy, and they're not trying to play got you. The idea is that past performance predicts future performance. And so what you've done in the past in your workplace, with your education, and with how you conducted your personal business out in the public helps an employer evaluate you against all the other candidates for a job and make the right choice for the right position. There is a job for everyone out there, but not everyone is right for every job. And some things might even eliminate you from consideration for a job, but other things may speak well for you. So the background screening process can help you or help, and hopefully help the employer make a good decision as well. So when we're talking about, the employer says, we're going to do a background check on you, is there anything we should know? And you're thinking, oh no, what does that mean? What's going to happen? Well, first of all, let me suggest that you just forget everything you've ever seen on CSI, okay? If that stuff was reality, it would be a lot more boring, okay? And I'm a private investigator, and I don't own a red Ferrari, and the only woman I've seen in a bikini in a long time is my wife, and she makes sure that it stays that way. So, all of TV and everything you see about investigations, background checks, all of that, it's pretty bogus. And so we're going to talk today about the reality of what comes up when we actually do a background check and how we go about that process and what employers are really interested in. The FBI has spent millions of dollars trying to build a nationwide criminal records database. And in 2006, they published, the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, published a report saying, we're missing, half of our records are incomplete, and we don't know how many more we're missing, but they know they're missing a lot. And I can tell you my banking clients who have access to the FBI's criminal records data and use us as a backstop to that process often come to me and say, hey, we didn't hire this person because you said this on the background check, but the FBI check came back clear. And that's simply because their data is only as good as the information they've received from states and counties across the country. So there's no such thing as a national comprehensive database, although there are a lot of companies that will try to sell that kind of product. And this will explain for you why, if you've got some minor offense in your past, with one employer, you may get a clean bill of health, a clean background check with nothing on it, and this other offense may show up with the next employer. I hear from applicants often that, well, this didn't show up on my last background check. Why is it on there now? And this may be a DWI from 7 or 8 years ago, and they're concerned about why one employer doesn't see it and one employer does. It's simply because there's not a single source for records. And some employers try to rely on just a single database, but they miss anywhere from 40 to 60% of the records doing it that way. Texas has its own criminal records database for the state of Texas, and we ran everybody in death row through that database about 4 years ago, and they were missing a third of the people on death row in the state's own database. Now the good news is those guys aren't competing with you for jobs, okay? They're not out there applying. But we found across the board, everything from minor misdemeanors to murder and serious felony offenses. About a third of the records are missing from the state's own criminal records repository. So again, there's not just one source for these records. We've got to build the records from as many sources as we can. And that means we go into the county courthouses and check those counties typically where the person has lived, worked, or attended school. And we limit it to that primarily because there are 254 counties in Texas, something like 3,033 counties in the US, and something like 11,000 courthouses in the United States. So you can imagine we can't go into all those courthouses and check all those records. I'd love for the client to pay me to do that, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. So what we do is look at, on the criminal side, where somebody's lived, worked, attended school, and try to build out a criminal history based on that, and use the state's database and the so-called national, we call it a multi-jurisdictional database, as a safety net. So if I didn't know you'd ever been in Maricopa County, Arizona, perhaps it'll show up in that database, and we'll go back and to Maricopa and verify the record is accurate and up to date. And so that's kind of, the way we do it. And that's why a background check may take more than one day. People get nervous because they say, well, they said they were going to start the background check on Monday and it's Wednesday and they haven't heard from them. So am I getting rejected? Well, some counties take longer, and especially in this economy, courthouses have laid off a lot of staff. And Los Angeles County and many counties in California have a mandatory furlough day where every month the entire court system gets laid off for one day. And so every month they fall another day behind. And so it takes longer to retrieve records and to verify that, that this person is or isn't the defendant in this case. And so we kind of go through that process. And so sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 days. Clark County, Nevada, by policy, you hand them a request for records. They don't have a public terminal. And you hand the clerk a request for records, and she sets it aside for a week before she even touches it, because they're trying to dissuade people from coming in there and doing that because they don't have the staff to handle it. So what that means is if somebody lived in Fort Worth, you go to the Tarrant County Courthouse. If they lived in Austin, you go to the Travis County Courthouse. And if they lived in Laredo, you go all the way down to the Webb County Courthouse and check those live records. And that's what a lot of our day is spent doing, dealing with people all over the country who do that kind of research for us. Another thing to know is that employers are concerned about the underlying action related to a criminal case. A criminal case is only a pointer to some conduct that this person is alleged to have engaged in the past. So it's not just convictions they're interested in. I hear from applicants often that, well, my attorney said this wouldn't be on my record. Well, if your attorney told you that, he didn't understand how the records are kept either, and that's not uncommon. But if you, for instance, a deferred adjudication, where you enter a plea of no contest or guilty to the offense, and then you serve some sort of probation, and at the end of the probation the case is dismissed, well, it shows up as a dismissal on the court's record. It actually shows up as a dismissal upon completion of deferred adjudication, which means that you pled no contest or guilty to that offense. So now an employer in Texas and most other states can consider that conduct, because they're concerned with what you did, not how the court happened to expedite that case to get it off their docket. And so that's what, for instance, I'm on deferred adjudication for speeding tickets almost all the time. It seems like the police know that my 6 months on probation for that last speeding ticket just expired, so they can give me a new ticket. And so, but you see deferred adjudication for all kinds of offenses, and you'll and often people think they're going to go away, but they don't really go away. They show up as a dismissed upon deferred. And then you also see cases that are pending, things like that, and we'll report those to clients. But we will report legally even just outright dismissed cases. For instance, we've got some social service clients where clients whose employees deal with very vulnerable populations. And if they were to see a report that had 4 assault and bodily injury of a family member cases, 4 domestic violence type cases, and they're all dismissed at the request of the complaining witness, I would be concerned before I would do more research, and I would want my client to ask for more research before we put that person in an environment where they're dealing with very vulnerable populations, because there's something going on an ongoing basis. So let's look at police reports and get this additional information and make a better decision than just ignoring that information.